Hi, I'm Marcel, and welcome to me screaming into the void, mostly about books. It's November, it's Read What You Own, and I have read Kristopher Schau's On Behalf of Friends. This is a short book where Kristopher Schau is doing a project where he reads about the public burials in Oslo, Norway, where he lives. These are funerals that is paid for by the government and very often is attended with no friends. So he wanted to do a project where he visited these funerals just because he had an emotional reaction to how can there be people who are buried without any friends present. So he talks, it's written in the first person and it's very clearly his own reflections. And that's probably, if the book had been any longer, that would probably be my biggest gripe with the book, that it is a book very much from his perspective and sort of what he thinks and what he feels about this. He has a very human general voice, so I don't think that what he describes will feel so uncommon. I think that a lot of people will think and feel the same things that he talks about in this book. And he talks about how weird it is with the Undertaker, who is almost blasé on this thing of people being buried alone, because it's the same company that is doing all of the burials at the time. There's won the ability to do this uh, from the government. And he also talks a little about the priests that are doing. So all of the burials that he is talking about are Christian burials in connection with the Norwegian Church, which is the majority church in Norway. I liked the project that he is doing, and I probably liked the project more than I liked the book itself. I found it so interesting to start to think about people dying alone and people not having any friends when they are buried. That is a part of the human condition that we live in. I'm not really talking about family, because there are a lot of reasons why people might not have children at the end of their lives or might not have any family members. But the fact that we are now living so isolated from one another, that there is that people can die without anyone noticing, that people can die. And he talks about how some of them were dead for a few days before the government realized that they were dead. It's an interesting thing to think about, and about what this does with our idea of what a society means. What does it mean that we are a part of a society? We are social beings. So our general health is linked to the kind of social interactions that we have. A lot of the people that he is describing in his book are widows or widowers and have no one when they die. And we have sort of moved so into an individualistic society that can happen. I also enjoyed the project, not because he talks so much about it, but about how weird we think death is today. I mean, death used to be a part of life because that was one of the only things that we were guaranteed about. We were going to die. And then at the sort of late 1800s, we had this shift of a mentality where death was moved away out of our day-to-day. And this impacted down to our language. The living room is called living room to show that you shouldn't have dead people in it, because usually in a lot of cultures you had people displayed in what we today call the living room as a way of people to mourn and say their goodbyes. So we live in a sort of weird aspect and weird timeline where death, even if it is inevitable, is still something very foreign to a lot of us. So that was On Behalf of Friends by Kristopher Schau. And as I stated, I liked the project a lot. And the book, you can't have it in English, I've checked, but you can read it in Norwegian or or for those who understand Norwegian. It is worth reading, or even if you just want to think about that. I mean, what society, what does it say about our society that people can die without other people noticing? And do we have an obligation in this? If my neighbors die, does that actually say something about me as a neighbor? I really like to know your thoughts about that, and also about death. What does it mean with our relation to death when death has sort of been moved out of the living room because it's only for the living? So, one book down. In my last video I did sort of a number generator, but of course having 100 books to read, I was afraid I maybe were going to lose control over which books I had and hadn't read regarding the number. So I'm going old school and have written it on a note, and I'm going to pick a number to see what is the next book that I am going to read in my project. And it's number 36. And 36, I think, is in book number 36. So I don't know any of the books that is packaged in these, in all of these, because my husband picked them. So I'm generally going to be surprised. And this is Jack Kerouac, On the Road. It's a book about, just reading on the back, joins the slightly crazed Dean Moriarty on a breathless, exuberant ride back and forth across the United States. Their hedonistic search for a release or fulfillment through drink, sex, drugs, and jazz becomes an exploration of personal freedom, a test of the limits of the American dream. This is a book more about the Beat generation. He was an author, Beat generation, all that good stuff. So I'm looking forward to reading it, and I'll let you know what I think. Thank you for listening to me screaming into the void.